I've seen hollow points mushroom, I've seen solids punch clean through, but I ain't ever seen a bullet split into blades and keep driving like a damn drill bit. This Lehi round doesn't just hit, it tears you 4 different ways while the core keeps on trucking, and that'll make any shooter stop and say, "What the hell did I just fire?" What's up, everyone? This is Ted from Line 45, and today we're checking out the Lehigh Controlled Fracturing round, a bullet that splits into blades and still punches through like nothing I've ever seen. Before we dive in, do me a solid. Smash that subscribe, tap the bell, hit all the dang buttons down there. You don't gotta, but it keeps this train rolling and lets me crank out more of this wild gun talk for y'all. All right, enough of that. Let's get back to it. The shock factor. I've shot just about every flavor of hollow point and solid out there. But the first time I cracked open a box of Lehigh's controlled fracturing rounds, I knew this wasn't just another boutique gimmick. These bullets are CNC machined from solid copper, and right away, you notice the cuts in the nose. They aren't for looks. They're pre-stressed fractures, designed to break off in a controlled way once the bullet meets resistance. Instead of just expanding like a normal JHP, this thing peels apart into 3 or 4 razor-like petals that veer off into separate wound channels, while the base keeps trucking straight through. That's the wild part. You're basically getting 2 jobs in one shot. The petals create multiple secondary channels, spreading energy and damage wider than a standard hollow point could, and the base keeps the straight-line penetration you need for reliable stops. On Lehigh's own data, you'll see calibers from 9mm to 45 ACP and even big rifle offerings, all with the same mission: predictable fracturing and consistent penetration. In gel tests I've seen, a 10mm CF round threw off 4 petals that each carried about 19 grains, and the solid base still drove almost 20 inches deep. That's a serious balance of fragmentation and penetration, something most other bullets struggle to do both of. It's all lead-free copper too, which matters in states cracking down on lead projectiles. So right out of the gate, you've got a round that doesn't look like anything else on the shelf, and sure as hell doesn't act like it when you pull the trigger. How controlled fracturing works. Here's the deal. Lehi ain't your regular hollow point. A hollow point is like rolling the dice. Sometimes it mushrooms perfectly. Sometimes it clogs with clothing and just zips through like ball ammo. The Lehi Controlled Fracturing? It doesn't leave it up to chance. They cut the bullet out of solid copper and machine deep grooves into the nose. Those grooves are fault lines. When it hits soft tissue, the pressure snaps it apart right where it was designed to. Now, don't think of fragments as little jacket flakes. These are serious copper petals, 3 or 4 of them, each weighing 15 to 20 grains, depending on caliber. They break off and veer outwards, digging their own wound tracks. Meanwhile, the solid base keeps trucking forward. That's the trick. You get multiple wound channels and still keep the penetration you need. In gel, I've seen 9mm bases drive 15 inches and 45-second going close to 20. That's FBI spec penetration while throwing extra cutters into the mix. And because it's solid copper, it's consistent. No lead core to deform weird, no jacket to separate wrong. Shot after shot, it repeats the same performance. Plus, being lead-free means it's legal in states that ban lead projectiles, and it's safer in indoor ranges. You can find these in all the usual suspects: 9mm, 380s, 40s, 45 ACPs, and even hunting loads and rifle calibers. The recipe doesn't change. Controlled petals, solid base, engineered chaos. It's simple when you break it down, but nasty when you see it in action. Performance in gel and real-world testing. So here's where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to talk about design. It's another to see what it does when you actually send rounds into gel. I've watched these Lehi controlled fracturing loads in slow-mo gel tests, and it's nasty in the best way. As soon as the bullet hits, those pre-cut petals snap off and go slicing outwards. You don't just see one wound channel. You see 3 or 4 curving off like spokes on a wheel. And while that's happening, the solid copper base keeps digging straight ahead. Take 9mm for example. Standard hollow points will usually open and punch about 12 to 15 inches in gel if they're doing their job. The Lehi CF base alone hits that same window, but now you've also got those copper petals tearing their own paths several inches wide. In 45 ACP, I've seen the base push almost 20 inches while the petals fan out to nearly 5 inches across. That's not hype. That's data from multiple independent gel tests, and it's repeatable. Barrier performance is where things get tricky. Through heavy clothing or drywall, the petals can sometimes shear off sooner, and penetration depth on the base might shorten a little. But even then, the wound channels still exist, and the base still drives deeper than most fragmenting ammo ever could. That's the edge here. You're not giving up penetration just to get fragmentation. Shooters who've run it in defensive drills say recoil feels about the same as standard ammo, accuracy stays tight, and the effect on gel looks far more violent. It's the kind of performance that makes you pause and think, this could change what we expect out of a defensive round. Shooter feedback. Here's the part that matters most. How does it run when you actually load it up and squeeze the trigger? I dumped a mag of Lehigh Controlled Fracturing through my Glock 19 and later through a 1911, and I'll be straight with you. It feels just like shooting good carry ammo. Recoil's the same. No funky cycling, no feeding issues. If you didn't know what you were running, you'd think it was premium JHP. But the second those rounds smack gel, you realize this ain't normal. Accuracy? Dead on. At 10 and 15 yards, I was stacking rounds like I always do. That's the crazy part. You don't sacrifice accuracy for the fragmentation trick. The pedals don't break off till impact, so on paper it's flying true. Couple of guys at the range tried it and just shook their heads. One said, feels like hollow points, but the gel block looks like it got hit with a shotgun. And get this, a buddy of mine ran the 380 version. Normally, 380 hollow points barely open, right? These pedals still snapped off, and the base drove deep enough to matter. That's when it clicked for me. This design gives smaller calibers some real teeth. So if you're watching this right now, you tell me, would you carry a round that feels totally normal at the range, but turns into 4 cutters the second it hits? Because after seeing it firsthand, I get why people are calling this one of the nastiest defensive loads out there. Cost, availability, and practicality. Now let's talk about the stuff that really decides if this stays in your carry gun or just sits on a shelf. Lehigh's controlled fracturing rounds ain't cheap. You're looking at around $40 to $50 for a box of 20 depending on caliber. That stings compared to your regular hollow points, but here's the way I see it. You're not burning this stuff up on range day. This is carry ammo, defensive ammo, the stuff you load when it matters. For practice, you run your standard FMJ. For real life, you keep these chambered. Availability's hit or miss. Some online retailers stock it steadily. Others sell out quickly, because Lehigh's a smaller operation compared to the big names like Federal or Winchester. I've had better luck ordering direct or catching it on specialty ammo sites. Don't expect to find this at every local gun shop, though a few of the bigger ones might keep a couple of boxes behind the counter. Practicality-wise, it fits in standard mags, feeds in standard guns, and doesn't require any special tuning. That's huge. You're not messing with exotic brass or funky case dimensions. You just load and go. And since it's lead-free, it plays nice at indoor ranges that ban lead ammo, and it's legal in states that crack down on lead for hunting. That's a bonus a lot of folks overlook. So yeah, it costs more, and it's harder to find, but you're buying performance that standard hollow points can't touch. For me, that makes it a specialty tool, not for plinking, not for training, but for the moment when everything's on the line. Gimmick or game changer? So here's the straight talk. I've seen plenty of miracle bullets over the years, all hype and no backbone. But the Lehigh Controlled Fracturing round? Man, this thing actually does what the box says. It snaps into blades on impact. It chews through gel like a blender. And the core keeps driving deep. That ain't marketing smoke. That's what it really does. Now, I ain't gonna pretend it's perfect. It's pricey. It's not sitting on every shelf at Bass Pro, and it won't punch through barriers as clean as a bonded hollow point. If you're running into autoglass or drywall in your scenarios, an HST or Gold Dot is still the safer bet. But here's one thing that I need to get off. If your goal is maximum tissue disruption while still hitting FBI depth, this round is flat out mean. It gives smaller calibers like 380 some real bite, and in 9mm or 45 it makes gel blocks look like they took a shotgun blast. For me, this ain't a gimmick. It's a specialty tool. Something you load when you want over-the-top damage, without losing penetration. Would I trust it in a carry gun? Yeah, in the right role. Would I replace every hollow point I own? Probably not.